Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Our producer for the night, of course, you know the deal, Mr. Sensational himself, the great Craig Gibson. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM. This is Tuesday, the 29th day of July, 2025. And if it's a Tuesday, you know the deal. It's Maritime Tick, 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 Tick Matters. Be encouraged that if you're driving and tuned in with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for tonight's show are 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my little cousin, Shantia McBride, and her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau, and, of course, in the city of Freeport, Island Care Pharmacy. Fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site, 101pharmacy.com. That's 101 Pharmacy, all lowercase, all one word, .com. The three locations again, East Street South, and that, you know, when you go in there, you gotta speak with Joy. Joy is the pharmacist. Joy will sort you out with all the fixing up you need, because she hard like that. Again, you'll find 101 Pharmacy on Charles Sanders Highway. And then in downtown Freeport, you wouldn't find 101 Pharmacy. You will find Island Care Pharmacy. But they're all roped into one network, and they all wake like three sisters, eh? We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. At BMC, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. And with that, I say good night to my good old Auntie May. And I call her old because she old. Auntie May, I only wish I could get that old. 92 years and going strong. Good night, Auntie May. You're listening to Maritime Matters. And on this show, we talk maritime. Tonight, we engage various recent maritime hot topics. The big one, of course, is the impact of the newly introduced celebration key. So, in addition to that, the topics we seek to engage tonight include the following: 100-meter upgrade and modernization of Freeport Container Port. It's launched already. They put $100 million in upgrading equipment, upgrading everything there. Yeah. Another topic would be how the BMA deny that Russian ships have been stripped of the Bahamian flag, and rightly so. BMA is only giving their stance in response to what was alluded to by the officials of Ukraine, as they said that, you know, sanctions are always being imposed on Russia and the shadow fleet, as they call it. That means shadow fleet meaning the Russian fleet of ships, whether it be tankers, whether it be container ships, whatever it be, that are making money and doing things. They say that shadow fleet needs to be sorted out so that they can't make no more money, because some of that money is being used for Russia to get weapons to keep banging on Ukraine. But the BMA say, oh, no, we ain't got nothing to do with that. Don't try to blame us. We're going to speak tonight, if we get a chance, and I'm sure we will, about the detention. First of all, the detection and the detention of 17 Haitians during an early morning raid last week. 17. Then we have our final topic, which will be talking about the LJM Maritime Institute, as they had their graduation last week, that the class of 2025. We'll talk a little bit about that and beyond. What happens now that graduation is done? Where are we headed with LJM? The government is now on board with them, etc., etc., etc. So, moving all the way back up to the top. Is that a line? Or that's just a, okay, that's negative. No. Okay, my producer said that blinking line is only blinking right. So, okay, that one ain't on. So, moving right back up to the top. We talk about celebration key. Celebration key. Again, celebration key is that portion on the main Grand Bahama Highway between, say, the bridge, as we know it. There are two bridges now. There's the old bridge and there's a new bridge. And both of them are bridges that take us across the canals from the Freeport City area and onto the highway that goes all the way out to High Rock and McLean's Town and South Riding Point and those areas, right? So you got to cross the bridge. And between the bridge, just past what used to be University of the Bahamas, we have a new area that has been developed so strong that it kind of dwarfs anything else in Freeport as far as development is concerned. You're talking about Celebration Key. It's not a key, it's on the mainland. But it's called a key because it is owned and it's being operated and everything in there belongs to Carnival Cruise Lines. And I have not seen, well, I've seen it from the air, I've seen it on photos, but I've not actually been into or onto Carnival Key. But everybody I speak with that have been there speaks about how magnificent this thing is, how fantastic it looks, and then I'm not surprised. I've been on many Carnival cruise ships. I used to inspect Carnival cruise ships, right? So I know what's going on. I'm a pilot, so I've been on many cruise ships, Carnival and everybody else, inside, outside, and all the rest of that. So we know what the standards are like. We know how magnificent these ships look, right? When you compare them with any other ships. So yes, we'll expect that if that shipping operation with all the passengers are now going to move on to land, and they're responsible for setting up that land, it's going to be something fantastic. And we got a lot of lead, eh? Because we have like the perfect day at Coco Key. Of course, that's not Carnival, but it's a private island. We have Disney with their couple spots. They got Castaway Key, and of course Disney also, they have the new one. I think this is the one just before Celebration Key was at south end of Eleuthera, what's it called, Lighthouse Point, right? And then we got NCL, Norwegian Cruise Line. They're the ones that own on the eastern side, the big Great Harbor Key, right? Now remember, Coco Key used to be Little Stirrup Key, and they developed that to the extent where such a beauty. And Great Stirrup Key, which is just adjacent to that on the eastern side, is now Norwegian Cruise Lines, under Norwegian Cruise Lines ownership for the past so many years. And they're actually going to do the same thing, because what RCI, or Royal Caribbean International, or RCCL, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, what they did with Little Stirrup Key is, first of all, they changed the name. So it's now called, it was called Coco Key. Now they refer to it as a perfect day at Coco Key, right? And just about all of their ships in this region would go there during every tour. No matter where they go in, they could go there either on the way out or on the way in. Because you can remember now, we got the largest home ports in the world right on our back door. We're on their front door. It's hard for them to pass us. So what these cruise lines are now doing, all of them, and I had speak to some of them over the past week, what they're now doing is they're making sure that once their ship is deployed, no matter which one, because Carnival is saying to us that they're going to have 22 zero ships utilizing Celebration Key, And those 20 ships are going to be coming from 10 U.S. home port bases. And no matter where they go and when they leave those bases, they're going to come to Celebration. And that's why they're going to have 2 ships per day. Every day, Carnival is going to have 2 cruise ships. And the ships are so large, you know. Even the smaller ones are large now. What they're telling us is we can average 10 to 12,000 passengers at Celebration Key daily. You know, there's 10 to 12,000 people with money in their pocket. Because most of them come off the ships when they go to those private islands. You know, like when they come to Nassau, they say, boy, I ain't nothing new in Nassau. I ain't got nothing to see. And you can imagine, see, when the new Nassau cruise port was built, they put a lot of attractions in place. They made it nice and beautiful, and the shops and ice cream parlors. And what they did is they say, you know what? We can entice people to come off these ships. Because, you know, people used to come to Prince George Wharf, and the only thing they see is when they get out of the festival place was jewelry stores down Bay Street, and everything was so dirty and this and that and the next. And we know, that's our country. We do, what my boys say, piss poor job. We do a very poor job in ensuring that the place is beautiful and clean. Like you go to some European ports, you'll be amazed of how clean they are. You go to places like Singapore and Japan and what that place named Kim Jong-un, South Korea. Well, he's in North Korea, but obviously you go there. So South Korea, and these places are so clean. They're so clean because the authorities take cleanliness very seriously. And I believe our authorities also take it seriously. I wouldn't say very seriously, but seriously to a certain extent. But we need to really do a better job. And I guess it's a little late now. And like I've been proposing for time and memorial from the show started, we need to beautify Bay Street, and not Bay Street proper. The water side, leading from Prince George Wharf, the Arawak Key, and the water side leading from Prince George Wharf to Fish Fry. Not Arawak Key, so Arawak Key, I mean Porter's Key. Porter's Key and Arawak Key. Going along the water, we need to upgrade, uplift, make that walk path something, you know, the eyes could behold, and along the way you could have all your nice restaurants and clubs and ice cream parlors and whatever you want, man. Come on, if you ever walk along the Thames River in London, down where they have the London Eye and all of those things going on, it's just amazing. You do the same thing. I went to Halifax. They have a water walk where you walk in from one end of Halifax to the next on the waterfront, and you just on a walk path with a bunch of restaurants and this and that, and you go almost anywhere. You see what they did in Miami? They created this what this place named now opposite the Omni and them, right on the water. In Miami, what was in there when I used to go to Miami when I was much younger, right? But they just put a bunch of nice stores and like they're just beautifying these areas near the waterfront. And there's no reason why Nassau can't be like that. But what Carnival and them are doing, they beautify these things to the T. So Carnival has basically put in Freeport proper, Grand Bahama proper, right? A setup similar to what Half Moon Key, well, I wouldn't even say Half Moon Key, because they're a little shabby, right, compared to the rest. But what a perfect day at Coco Key, and I can tell you, boy, Great Stirrup Key is doing some big things. They're now building a dock where the ship could go in, and again, they have 2 ships a day. Same thing with Half Moon Key, they're building a dock on the inside. So the Bahamas, we ain't get nothing to worry about when it comes to cruising. They building so many cruise ships, they're getting bigger and bigger, larger and larger all the time, and the passengers are going to continue to pour in. All we got to do is sit back and receive and prepare so we can make some money off it. You know, the Bahamas government spending how much money from tourism to the rest of the world to try to get people to the Bahamas. You realize the amount of people that we spend those millions advertising to come to our country. It's a drop in the bucket compared to how much the cruise ships bring in, and we ain't got to pay a dime. And all we do is sit back and complain, oh, these cruise ship passengers don't spend no money. Hey, get yourself. Any country in this Caribbean would hope and wish that they were so lucky, so fortunate to have on a single day more than 20,000 passengers in Nassau. To now have in a single day more than 10,000 passengers at Grand Bahama on Celebration Key. We need to catch ourselves and kind of do what we're supposed to do to be able to receive and create opportunities to make a couple dollars out of all of these passengers. You ever been on a cruise ship? I've been on many cruises. When you go on a cruise ship and you say you're going ashore, you carry a couple dollars and you got your credit card, but you something that entice you to buy. You ain't going ashore with intention to say, oh, I can make sure I spend some money. No, that's foolishness. But if you see something that attract you, you will buy it. So let us, the Bahamian people, cause these thousands and thousands of people coming from these cruise ships to want to buy what we offer. Whether it be a tour, whether it be a merchandise that you created with Bahamas on it or something on it that could attract attention. They tired of saying all these knockoff Louis Vuittons and this thing and that thing and because they know they don't know now they knockoffs, right? And plus they know you can't pay the kind of money they could get them for Nassau anywhere else in the world, so something might be wrong with that. They can't be real. But everybody want to sell even in the straw market and all these straw no more. Anyway, we talking about Celebration Key, right? And Celebration Key is here today, and Celebration Key is here to stay. And it's anticipated that come June of 2026, that's just about a year away from now, they're going to have a second dock with another 2 ships. You know what that is? 4 big ships a day at Celebration Key. So instead of 10,000, now you got 20,000 a day. They ain't skipping no day. They ain't taking Sunday off. So people in Freeport really shouldn't have nothing else to complain about as far as tourists coming in. And some of those same tourists can take tours and they can fly back because they say, boy, look here, I see that beach by Silver Key, Silver, what is the area name? A nice beach where I used to go jogging on in the back of the big time hotel that closed now. What the one name? Breakers Key and Alukaya, in the back of Alukaya Hotel. Man, look at that beach is. I as a man, I like to. I used to run marathons. I used to run plenty beaches, plenty sand, etc., etc. When I used to play volleyball, they tell me you run sand and you can jump higher. And next thing I know, I run in sand all the time and I jumping higher than somebody hit us. Fellas tell me, man, you can who I expect me to hit the ball if you get that. Anyway, I digress, right? My apologies. But this Celebration Key operation, you now talking about 20,000 passengers a day because they're putting in a second berth, they're putting in more attractions, and all the rest of that good stuff. How could we, the Bahamian people, or more specifically the Freeportians, that's a word? I don't know. Mister, don't call me and tell me stop talking what I know. I say Freeportians, I don't know if that's a word, right? But the people of Freeport really shouldn't, because things were slow in Freeport over the past, especially since Hurricane Dorian and the COVID thing that mashed up our whole country, right? Things were slow, was coming around gradually. And I can tell you, I've been to Freeport since Carnival started its operation. And the amount of cars you see on the road now, I was like, hold on now, that's Freeport? I feel like I now saw you guys told line on light and stuff. But they're saying this used to be what Freeport used to be like back in the day when it was the Magic City. Is the magic coming back because of Carnival? I don't know. But one of the things we want to do, and I got to watch the time because I could talk about this all day, right? One of the things we ought to do, you ain't got to do nothing, but we ought to do, is ensure that all, minus none, all relevant commercial activities being undertaken at Carnival Key, where The government say these areas are reserved for Bahamians, like water sports and all the rest of those things. You got to make sure that all of them are actually undertaken by Bahamians. See, because let me tell you what I know. I'll tell you what I know. What I do know is that on some of those private islands, some of those activities, like water sport, activities with jet skis and parasailing and non-motorized equipment, these things are being done by the cruise lines. They don't have, mind you, they're supposed to be protected for payments, you know. The cruise lines ain't supposed to have no place in that. But they doing it and making money. Where are the Bahamians who doing it in Nassau to Paradise Island and out Cable Beach and all that? We have Bahamians who could provide the service. But the cruise ship say, this wiki, this we island. We ain't let nobody come and make no money. Well, we know that got to stop, right? That got to stop in its tracks, dead. Because we got plenty Bahamians with the capacity to provide this service and make some money. Just like how they was making money. We were not making any money. You know, Bahamians was making money from piloting these ships. Here it is now. There's a mandate for the 2nd of September. The first day of September, correction, not the 2nd. The 1st of September. All of these cruise ships are required to have a Bahamian pilot on board to bring them to either the dock or the anchorage or wherever they go in. Because they were having their captains do it. And the captains wasn't even being paid for it. They were being paid to be captains. But they were piloting these ships all along and they ain't making a dime. And the pilot wasn't making a dime. So the cruise ships was keeping all this money. And I can tell you all how much money it is, but I can tell you it's a significant amount of money that the cruise ships are keeping in their coffers that now need to come out and go to qualified pilots in this country. So I say the same thing for those who run jet skis in this country. The cruise ships were making the money of running the jet skis on their private islands. So we now got to step up and provide that jet ski service to these private islands. We got to provide the non-motorized boating services to these private islands. We got to provide the jet ski services to these private islands and braiders, here braiders. And all the things we see going on the beach in Nassau. You know, they always say, oh, it's too much harassment, which is really true. Our people, we like to harass too much, and we don't like to be organized, and we don't like to go by rules. So we need to organize that. But with those private islands, you don't have to worry about all that. Because you work together with the government authority, the port department, and you work together with the cruise line, and you will be the one that's providing that service. Now, we could have more than one. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be the cruise line company is making this money in our country that's reserved for payments. And so I say the Carnival Key. Well, Chris, with the key name, Celebration Key, that Carnival owns in Grand Bahama. I think outside of Princess Key, this would have been the second one on one of our major islands, right? And now we also got a third one. Oh, this will be the third one, because I think the second one was with the key name in Saudi Lutre. We talk about the one that Disney now owns. Which one that is? Lighthouse Point. Yeah, that one is also on mainland. But most of just about all the other ones are on little keys surrounded by water, so they're not on our mainland. And so they were doing a lot of things that they could have gotten away with because nobody really does see what's going on. Excuse me. So we got to cut that out, eh? We, the Bahamian government, we, the Bahamian people, we got to make sure we got to capitalize wherever we can when it comes to the country making revenue from these cruise ships. And it's such a good arrangement. You know, they got the biggest home ports right in our back door. We right in their front door. Well, no reason why everybody shouldn't be able to make the money they're supposed to make, right? And I think the cruise ships are softening up to that. They're softening up to the extent where they realize that there are laws and policies of this country that they were violating. And we now prepared to enforce it, and they're now prepared to cooperate. So we have no problem as such, right? No big deal. It is what it is. So that's how we roll it. Now, as we move on to our next topic, we say the Bahamas Maritime Authority denies claim that Russian ships are stripped from the Bahamian flag. Now, what all that means? I mean, let's break that down, because I think we take a break in a minute. Are we taking more than one break this trip? Yeah, I think we take more than one break. So, let's take one break now, and half hour later we'll come back and take the next break, and then we keep going. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Payne. Our lovely producer for the night is the great Mr. Craig Gibson. And we're discussing maritime issues. We just finished talking about the Celebration Key that is open up in Grand Bahama now and moving things and making big bucks, and everybody is making something and being comfortable with it. We're going to talk about, I think next we will talk about upgrade, the modernization of Freeport Container Port. So right now we'll move to our first break, and when we return, we will do our thing.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Good times, great oldies. Love 97.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Payne. Tonight, we are discussing Celebration Key. We are discussing the upgrade to the Freeport Container Port. We are discussing the BMA denying that the claim that Russian ships are being stripped from our flag is fallacy. We are discussing the detection and detention of 17 Haitians during an early morning raid between 3 and 6 in the morning. You believe that? We are discussing LJM, the class of 2025 and beyond. We are discussing those maritime issues. So you're listening here to Maritime Matters, and on this show, as you know, we talk maritime. Maritime Matter is weekly at 17:05 to 5:05 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. The primary purpose of our show is to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and international maritime feeds. The phone number to call us, should you wish to get in on this discussion during the show, is 326-8255. I repeat, 326-8255. To hear a replay of this show or any other previous shows that we produce, simply hit us up at any time via our YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just like we say I love you, there's Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just go to your YouTube on your electronic device and type into the search box Maritime Matters Bahamas, and you will see a litany of our various shows starting from what we started March of 2002. Boy, I'd go way back, and you can have fun whenever you're ready. You just click one, and you listen to what we have to say about those maritime things at that time. So let's talk maritime. We go back to Our hot topics, we already discussed Celebration Key that commenced its operation in Grand Bahama, I think about 2 weeks ago, and it's really moving along steadily. And then now we have a $100 million upgrade and modernization of the Freeport Container Port. That's launched already. Now, how large is this anticipated expansion? It's not extremely large like when they were building the actual container port, but it is large enough that they got additional equipment like shuttle carriers and straddle carriers and gantry cranes. They got a couple more of them coming in. And we may ask, why is this expansion being done at a time like this? Well, why not? But some of us may think, and I may be inclined to think, that this is really a spin-off from the recent impositions on China-built ships going into U.S. ports. And also the tariff hikes that the Donald Trump administration had levied to all countries. And one by one, countries are bargaining to cut that percentage down on U.S. imports. So, based on all of that, the question could be asked, what next? So the rest of the world is scrapping to deal with the tariff hikes that impacts a lot of their revenue, and reshuffling China-built ships so that they don't have to go into U.S. ports because they have to pay that $1 million a time. And even ships that are being built in China, the Trump administration is saying, whenever they're ready, we get levy tax on them too if they come into the U.S. So it have that impact where a lot of people don't even want to build a ship in China no more. But when you go to countries like France that builds a lot of ships, Finland that builds a lot of ships, Italy that builds a lot of ships, when you go to those countries to build ships now, who says that 20 years down the road, another big country may not say any ship built in that particular country will have to pay $1 million every time they come to our country? We don't know. So where do you build the ships? Well, right now we know you need to be building in China, right? And I think that has had the impact that has had is the impact that was foreseen by President Trump. And people may say, boy, President Trump, he ain't too smart, boy, you all just don't know. You all think President Trump ain't too smart? Boy, the things President Trump doing now is rattling the whole world, just rattling it up and making people have second thoughts and third thoughts and making adjustments and because the world has now realized how fragile this trade industry could become. How fragile one decision could shift the pattern of movements around the whole world. So, this upgrade and modernization of Freeport Container Port. Remember where the Freeport Container Port is now? The Freeport Container Port is in the Bahamas, which is just on the front door or back doors, depending on how you look at it, of the great United States, the Florida state. So, if a China-built ship is going to be that is accustomed to going into Florida to do trade, and they don't want to be spending that $1 million every time, because now you got to remember now some of the containers and whatnot they would be carrying into Florida are only there to be transship, pick up by another ship, and take probably South America or up to Canada or something like that. So just like Freeport Port is primarily used as a hub for what we call a transfer, right? It's a transfer hub. It's a more technical name, but I can't remember all these things when on the show. Or one of y'all could call me 326-8255 and tell me what it is, right? But a transshipment. It's a transshipment hub. Florida has a lot of transshipment hubs too that these China-built ships will go into. So while we're so close, those same China-built ships will continue to come in, but instead of go to Florida to transship that container, they could do it at the Freeport Container Port. So the money that they would have made at the port in Florida, which might have been a little lower than in Freeport, they can now make that money in Freeport because they ain't got worried about that $1 million entry fee. So, of course, Freeport got to know this. They're positioned to do it. And they decided now, boy, we better upgrade and add some equipment because we think we can get a lot more as a result of this seismic shift in trade when it comes to China-built ships. Because China got more ships on the water than any other country in the world. Most of the ships out there belong to China, right? When you compare it with any other country. So we got to look at why. Well, we don't have to look at it, but I would want to imagine that the reason why this upgrade is happening around now is because it's anticipated that the Freeport Container Port volume will increase tremendously as a result of what has been happening on the world, on the global trade. So, no calls yet, ladies and gentlemen. I like to get calls, but sometimes if you don't call and keep talking. I remember one fella called the show one time and he say, man, I used to listen to your show, but you used to want to talk too much. I say, I want to talk too much. What happens if I don't talk? Ain't nobody call and I don't talk. That means we'll have nothing but silence. So I don't have the luxury to not talk. You don't know, sometimes I just don't want to talk. I just want to take a little break, but you nobody's be calling. I wonder if anybody's be out there listening sometimes. That's why I tell some of my friends, man, call and say, hello, man, the show going good, man. Keep it going. That's all I need to hear. You ain't need to know nothing technical but this stuff or nothing like that for for you to hail me. Hail me, man. Hail me. 326-8255. Bahamas Maritime Authority denies the claim that the Russian ships were stripped of the Bahamian flag. And again, the question is, should the BMA remove Russian-owned ships from the Bahamas flag? BMA being Bahamas Maritime Authority that registers those ships. Should it, if we do have ships on our flag that are owned by some Russians, because of course the Russia country is not going to own any of our ships. It have to be owned by a company or an individual, right? And if we can identify ships that are owned by Russian companies or Russian personnel, should we strike those ships from our flag and tell them, well, you know, you're all in war with Ukraine and yada, yada, yada. We can't continue to register. The only thing that'll happen is they'll now go to Panama or go to Liberia or go to Cyprus or go to Malta or go to one of those countries that they got a whole heap of them that will take them like yesterday. Because, of course, that's money to make. So I think it would be asinine of the BMA, in the absence of any mandate from our foreign affairs or our government or from the rest of the world, to take action against any ship that is meet all the requirements to be registered under the BMA, except that the person who owned it or the entity that owned it have Russian affiliation or Ukraine affiliation or Israeli affiliation or Gaza affiliation. Because that means now anytime a war pop up and sanction are imposed on another country, we supposed to just strip them from our flag? Oh, come on, man. Give me a break. Please, give me a break. That cannot be so, eh? So, the BMA said, oh, no, we haven't done that. And they go on to say, well, we don't even know anything about any of our ships. Now, what they call it in Russia and Ukraine and the Western world is the Russian shadow fleet. In other words, Russia have a fleet of ships out there that are owned by Russians or Russian companies, but they're not warships. But they're making money. So the mandate from, I want to say the West, because they normally refer to NATO as the West, eh? The mandate from NATO, which includes the US, is that Russian-owned yachts are going to be confiscated. And they confiscated many yachts that are owned by Russian entities or Russian personnel. And they still got some of them locked up. And they're unable to operate. But now, it appears as though they want us to apply to commercial ships as well. And so what should our BMA do? If we survive, we make our living of registering ship. We like to brag, but how are we number 8 in the world or 9 in the world? We used to be number 3 one time ago, right? But we clean up our registry a little bit and we drop down because you always get competition, right? So we bragging about how much flags we got because we know the more ships you get on your flag, the more money you make it. And so why would we strip the Russian ships off our flag? Russia got tankers, well, not the country Russia, Russian companies and Russian personnel. They got tankers, they got container ships, they got all kind of ships. You know, right? When people buy ships from other people and you don't buy a ship unless you buy it to make money, eh? So commercially, these ships are owned by entities all over the world. The Bahamas Maritime Authority has very few ships on its register, if any, that are owned by Bahamians. And I say if any with confidence. Right? Because they used to have a lot of mail boats and small boats we had going between Florida and the Bahamas. But they basically strike all of them off now because they say that that's such a risk. And I can't blame them. See, I understand how it works, right? I used to work for BMA for 3 years. There is a risk because if those vessels are not properly equipped, not properly managed technically, and they go into Florida and they're detained by the U.S. Coast Guard, that will be one detention against the country Bahamas. And when a country gets a lot of detentions, that causes the rest of the world to look at them and say they're not doing a very good job managing their fleet of ships because a lot of them are being detained, so we can now blacklist them. Well, they go on a gray list first, I think, but they watch you close, and then they go on a blacklist. Now, once you get on a blacklist, not only for maritime, but for most things, like banking and all them, right? Once you go on a blacklist, that means that whenever your ship, one of your ships is coming into a port, the controllers of that port, the port state inspectors, the people who go on board ships to make sure you're meeting the IMO standards for shipping, they would target you and they would say, hey, this is from a flag that is blacklisted. We must inspect them. Because they don't expect your ship to have everything in place. Because you blacklisted. So they almost must inspect your ship. So what that do to the ship and the ship owners and the ship operators? It put taxes, not tax money-wise, tax time-wise. Because if your ship getting inspected in every port it go in, that's you wasting the crew time, you wasting the cargo time, it can cost you time, it can cost you money. So if a ship is on a flag that's blacklisted, what's the first thing they want to do? They want to switch registration to a flag that is not blacklisted because they don't want people snooping on their ship every time they go in port. And we have more cruise ships on the Bahamas flag than any other country in the world have on their flag. So we register more cruise ships than any other country in the world. And if we blacklist it, those cruise ships can move away. They don't want to be affiliated with a blacklisted flag. And I tell you this because I know these are the things we used to be looking out for. When I was to be a man, I can change. So if we're in a situation where the Ukrainians are saying that the Bahamas strike some Russian ships off their register because of the embargo, then other countries are going to look at that and say, well, what can stop them from striking me off? Because like I say, first of all, other registries will pick them up. Because these may be highly technical operated ships. They got everything in place. But only because the owner or the company that owns it have Russian affiliation, you could take it off your flag. What sense does that make? Just for another flag to pick it up? I would BMA on this one. But you know, I don't be with BMA on plenty things, right? But I would BMA on this one. No, we ain't gonna do it. And quite technically, I don't even know if BMA could do that. Because BMA is a quasi-government entity that answers to the Minister of Transport. And of course, the Bahamas Maritime Authority Board. But the Minister of Transport is a part of a cabinet. And in that cabinet is another entity called Ministry of Foreign Affairs that sets out and ensures that the Bahamas comply with international treaties and all the rest of that stuff. And if they set policies and all the rest of that stuff. So if the Ministry of Foreign Affairs do not have a policy against Russian-owned ships or Russians who own ships in the Bahamas, then the BMA don't have the rights to just go to the door, but they're striking them off. That got to happen in tandem with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and, of course, the Cabinet of the Bahamas. So it'll be very difficult for me to believe what these Ukrainians are claiming. And, of course, I do believe what the BMA is saying, right? That, no, we didn't do this. That's basically where we are with that. 326-8255. Time is running. Feel free to call. Anytime. Move on to our next topic. The detention. But first of all, the detection. You got to find them first, right? And then when you find them, you can detain 17 Haitians. And this happened about 2 weeks ago, between 3 and 6 in the morning. Now, I remember one time I was on the road around just before 6. And I saw a bus with the men in green, the immigration officers. And they were all strapped. And they were on main intersections. They were on 2 main intersections that I passed. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Because, you know, back in my days, when I was a defense force officer, very seldom you would see an immigration officer carrying a weapon. Well, more so than that, even a police officer. Police officer never used to carry weapons on a routine basis back then, right? Well, you can hardly see police now without seeing a gun, eh? And that's the way I think it should have been from back then. But immigration officers, come on, man. But these immigration officers all were strapped. And they were checking people because the immigration know what's going on in this country. I don't want nobody fool themselves. They know where all the shanty towns are. They know where all the jobs are, where a lot of Haitian migrants are working. Where all the Filipino migrants are working. And all the rest of that. They know these things. So I'm not very impressed to know that immigration officers were out there early in the morning and holding Haitians hostage. And I'm not impressed because personally I don't feel like we need to abduct Haitians or Filipinos or anybody else in this country, whether they're legal or illegal. Because if they were successful enough to get here, it have to be for reason, especially from Haiti. Because when you leave Haiti to come to the Bahamas, you have to pass Cuba. Oh, well, you don't have to pass Cuba, but if you go to Cuba, it's a lot quicker than coming to Nassau. Or if you go to Jamaica, it's quicker. It's like half the distance it is to come all the way to Nassau. So why you go be on the sea for twice the amount of time catching hell because you ain't got no food and water in your boat? Why you would go through that if you could just go to Jamaica or go to Cuba if you want to get out of your country? And I'm bringing this up because we need to understand that when they come here for the simple reason that they could find employment here. Whether they're legal employment or illegal employment. They can make money to send home. Because if they go to Jamaica, the amount of money they could make in Jamaica wouldn't be nothing compared to what the amount of money, if they could make anything in Jamaica. You know, in Jamaica it's easy. Eh? That's like you come there and work on their job, right? Same thing with Cuba. It's even worse. So they come here because we slack. They come here because the opportunity to make money exists. And so we got to ask our question, ourselves the question. Why would the opportunity to make money in the Bahamas for an illegal migrant be greater than it is in Jamaica? Be greater than it is in Cuba? And we got to bear in mind too that the Bahamas per capita makes a lot more money than the Jamaicans and the Cubans. Eh? So we know that we are blessed to have all these cruise ships bringing all these passengers, and we're so close to the U.S. that we got flights piled up like dirt coming here. So some migrant coming in here, or even a Bahamian coming to look for jobs, it'll be easier to find jobs because we got more commercial activities going on with jobs per capita than those other countries would have. So I don't blame them for coming into the Bahamas. But my thing is, we, the Bahamian people, have to apply our laws to make it difficult for people to break our laws so readily. Because when those immigration officers get up, well, if they get from 3 to 6, I mean, they're getting up around 2 o'clock to go and get together and get the weapons and get in the buses and go out to do these things, right? So they're getting up there early. How many times do they do the same routine to go on these job sites that they know where these migrants are and lock up the owners who are hiring them? Because our law say the owners, if they hire an undocumented worker, is breaking the law. And each owner is supposed to pay some $2,500, or is it $3,500 or $5,000? I can't remember, but I know it's a couple $1,000, or get 6 months in jail, or both pay the money and go to jail for 6 months. That's what our law say. Now, how much owners you know are hiring these illegal migrants that's being caught or is be going to jail for hiring them? And this is where this country is making the mistake. We're not making a mistake, we're slack, right? But this is where we're not doing our job. This immigration ain't impress me because they go on the streets and pick up some migrants that are undocumented. No. You want to impress me? Lock up the owners. Lock up the people who are hiring them, the employers. Boy, wouldn't I be impressed. And I will talk it just like how we're talking now. So until you all start locking up these employers, and we know who they are, I ain't calling no names because I know you all know better than me who they are. Let me see in the paper so I can call their name. That means you don't lock them up. And until you start locking them up, I am not impressed. And you tying up defense force officers and immigration officers and whoever other officers to run a detention center. Why would we need a detention center? If the people who hiring them stop hiring them, so they can't send no money back home, so they ain't gonna come all the way here no more, or if they get here, they trying to go somewhere else where they could work and make money. And we know where that is. So my dear listener, I run it hot, right? But it you know, every time I give this thought, I just feel embarrassed that our authorities, knowing where these people working, knowing who hiring them, are not going to lock up these people who are breaking the law by hiring them and sending one to jail for 1 day. Don't send one to jail for 1 day, the rest will get the message. Let me know when you get one. Now I want the papers to put, see things like this, the papers gonna have to put down this don't happen. I want to see in the papers before this year out. One employer gone to jail for 1 day for hiring an illegal migrant. then I'll be impressed. I want to see a list of the shanty towns that this Davis PLP administration is going to pull down by the end of this year. I don't want to hear how much you done pull down. I mean, I'm impressed with that. Mr. Superman Clay Sweden got my vote on being the minister that pulled down more shanty towns probably than all the rest put together. And I'm impressed. But I don't think it should end there. Impress me some more. Show me a list. Or even if you ain't want me know, make sure they know. And if you ain't want them know, go start stripping them down so the press, they can complain and the papers will go and say, oh, this one coming down or that one coming down. We can't sit back and wait till election next year sometime to say, oh, well, you know, we done take down about 10 of them. No. How much are you going to take down between now and December? And then when next year come, between January and whenever you have election, or January and July, right? Let us know what you have planned to do these shanty towns. You're not going to live on past times. Yes, you did well. You did well, PLP government. You did better than any government I ever knew when it comes to breaking down shanty towns. You did better than Mr. Roker. I don't remember him breaking down no shanty town. Well, man, I don't pile up like dirt when Mr. Roker was in power, eh? Boy, but they could have run. That immigration officer could get a clothesline in them days. When you see them running through the yard, or you licked them. See, they shouldn't have no way all the clothesline was. So they ducked when they reached the clothesline. The immigration officer, you know, and that clothesline grabbed him by his neck, rigged him, he high and dry, right? So, I ain't nothing to laugh at, but my goodness, we used to laugh at them, right? We have no more clothesline going on, and we don't need no clothesline going on. We need to get the shanty towns wiped out. We get a lot of Bahamians who can't find apartments. Because apartments are so expensive today that I got some family who will probably go live in a shanty town right now just to have some place to stay. What I was paying for mortgage, can't pay for apartment today. Mortgage, I say. Because our country has become so expensive when it comes to apartments, and then you got a lot of people like me. Lord, I attest to it, right? I convert my apartments to Airbnb. That's what I plan on doing. Because that's where the money is. And if money could make, I feel like I have the option to make some money. And it ain't like I try to make it more difficult for people to rent. Because people in the rental business, they're in the rental business. I want to fix up my place so I could make some money from some people who don't live here. Some tourists and Bahamians who come from Family Island and whatnot, because they need nice rooms to hang out. The hotel, you don't want to know what the hotel can charge them. At least I'll be less than that, eh? But anyway, I digress. We need to focus on stopping these employers from employing undocumented workers in this country. Because number one, they're keeping a lot of jobs away from Bahamians. And you know why they're hiring them? We all know why. They're hiring them because it's cheaper to hire them. They're hiring them in some cases because they do better work. But why should me and the Bahamas be competing with somebody from another country because they can do better work than me? That should not be. And that should not be. They shouldn't even be here. And if they're here, they should not be employed. So what we need to do is we need to get on these employers who are employing these undocumented workers and lock up one of them for 1 day. One day. Make sure that in the papers. I want to talk about it on the show. We need to know from the Davis administration today. What's the intention? How much shanty dance we can take down between now and December? Which one we can take down first? I don't in Nassau. I ain't want no Family Island right now. Let's talk about Nassau. We know where they are. You all know where all 30-something of them is. That's what I was doing. If I wrong, 326-8255. Somebody from the Immigration Department, please call me, tell me I'm wrong. Somebody from Foreign Affairs, somebody from the police, somebody from somewhere, call me, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me the government don't know where these shanty towns are. Or tell me the government have a schedule as to when they could bring down, how much they could bring down by December, which one's coming down. No, mommy, we're operating in the dark and here every now and then. No. They're breaking the law. We know that the billing code has been violated. We know that some of them are on land they shouldn't be on. And why we can't just start taking them now or have a schedule to take them now? And some people talk, oh, well, you know, you have some place to put them, where they can go. Where they can go? You tell me they're breaking the law and you want me where they can go? Where are the Bahamians going to go? Who can't afford apartments right now? You putting them somewhere? Or you want them to go create a shanty town too? Now we got to get with the program. We are slack. We got to do better. Now, I think it's time for the next break. My goodness, I'm going to drink some water. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. With me tonight is my producer, the great Craig Gibson. We're now going to move to our second break. And when we return, we will talk about LJM, the class of 2025. And we're going to recapitulate on some of the things we already discussed, so that we can keep it fresh. We only got one more segment to go. Thank you so kindly.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away. Watching the tide roll away, just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for. Look like nothing's gonna come my way, so I'm just gonna sit.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You are listening to Maritime Matters. I'm your host, Captain Glenn Bain, and we are covering a litany of current maritime issues, situations, whatever we can call them. My boy Herb will say operations. So, the topics that we have engaged so far, we talk about Celebration Key, how it commenced, its operation in Grand Bahama, and it's having such a significant impact. And we mentioned about all the other private islands and the things they're doing and how they're developing and how the Bahamas is so fortunate to have them, right? We spoke about the $100 million upgrade at the Freeport Container Port and the fact that perhaps that's a spin-off from the pressure that the Trump administration has been putting on China. All China-built ships got to pay $1 million every time they enter the U.S. port. And also the tariffs coming into U.S. from other countries, the tariffs are so high. Well, we can't do nothing but that, because even if it comes, it's still got to go to the U.S. The tariff can apply whenever it reach wherever it come from, right? So, yeah, those are some of the things that we think might be causing this upgrade to happen at this moment. Not that it don't need to upgrade from time to time, but we know how that goes. Another topic we discussed was the BMA. They are denying the claim made by Ukraine that Russian ships are being stripped from the Bahamas flag, or should I say from the Bahamas flag registry. And yeah, we believe them, because we don't think Foreign Affairs have any policy saying that ships owned by Russian companies can't be on our flag or anything like that. And when those other countries are putting embargo on Russian entities, like they did on some of the yachts that are owned by Russians, we don't know if the Bahamas is a part of that regime that says we need to move away from them being on our registry. We had recently, last week sometime, during the morning, early hours, 3 to 6 in the morning, detention of 17 Haitian migrants, or 17 Haitians believed to be migrants, during a raid. And we don't know what took place since then, but that ain't too important, eh? The fact is, they're doing raids. And my view is that I don't know why they're doing raids. Because when they raid people, now they got to put them in the detention center, then they got to feed them, they got to make sure they escape, they got to tie up defense force officers, managing them, to feed them, to do this, to do that. And then while you get 100 or 200 or even 1,000 in the detention center, you still have 100,000 outside the detention center. So what is that doing? You're taking care of 1,000, you might as well put the next 100,000 and then take care of all of them. And what is that doing for you? No, what we need to do is we need to ensure that the people who are employing them are no longer willing or inclined to do so. Because we are putting pressure on employers, and we want to lock one of them up for one day so that they could be serious. So they can stop employing, because they know when you're employing somebody, you ask them for their documents. They know these people, they got the right documents. But they so slack, they won't pay the real money they're supposed to be paying for legalized people to be doing those jobs. They want to take advantage of people. They want to pay them less than the the minimum wage. And even if they ain't dealing with minimum wage, they want to pay them less than what they would normally pay professional in that area. We know. Let's lock up some of them. Lock them up because we know. If you want in on this discussion, 326-8255 is the number to call. That's 326-8255. Please feel free to call at any time. I'm ready to take your call. But if you don't call, you have to hear me talk. Well, you may have to. If you stay with us, you will. Because if I don't talk, we'll have nothing but silence. Right? So we now move to LJM. Maritime Academy at Crystal Key, is it? It used to be the Underwater Observatory Coral World. That's where they are. And they're doing big things. And I am so proud of them. I'm so happy that they're there doing what they're doing. But is there room for improvement? Does this institute have the right fit? Because they just had a graduation, class of 2025. And that is not the first one. That is, I think, the fourth or fifth one. This institution was going on for a while, eh? So they had quite a few graduations. But this one, I think, may be the first one since the Bahamas government and the Bahamas Maritime Authority started to pump money into it. You see, when this institution was first set up, it costs, and I know Mr. Mortimer don't like me to call your name, but Lowell J. Mortimer orchestrated the funding, and it cost somewhere in the region of $28 to $30 million to set this up. And that ain't no small money, because this is not the only maritime institution we have, but of course the other ones are just small institutions, you know, which are owned by Bahamians, just like this one. But they're not as equipped with all the simulators and machinery that you need to be training people to be engineers and deck officers and all that. They're not equipped like that. So of course they would not have incurred not even $1 million. Well, I mean, if they had $1 million, they probably wouldn't be fooling with this, right? So we're talking about big bucks. We're talking about a lovely institution, and there's more work to be done. But my question is, does this have the right fit for what we're doing? In other words, do we have the right person at the top? Do we have the right instructors? Do we have the right programs? And I don't know all the details. But what I do know is if we're going to have a maritime institution endorsed by our government and funded by the government and the BMA, and of course the cruise ships and all kind of other entities, then we should have some say in who's going to run this institution. And not only have some say in who's going to run it, we have an obligation, the BMA in particular, to ensure that the person who's going to run it or who's running it is suitable. This is somebody that's coming in with experience of running maritime institutions. Somebody that's coming in with the experience of serving on board ships. You're training people how to serve on board ships. If you're training people how to become lawyers, but the person in charge of that institution be a non-lawyer? If you're training people how to become doctors, how to become plumbers, how to become electricians, but the persons, the instructors, be persons that doesn't have the relevant license to be a doctor or a plumber or an electrician or a lawyer, but yet instructing, I dare say no. Got a phone call?
Pardon me?
Calling you on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Thanks.
You have some feedback, Brenda. If you could just turn your radio down.
But don't they have a maritime office on Shirley Street across from the Maritime Street?
You have a lot of feedback, Brenda. I hear what you're saying, but please turn your radio down, or your TV.
Hey, you remember when Dudley Manbo was alive, right? On Shirley Street.
Hold on, Brenda. You can't say when Dudley Manborough was alive. As far as I know, Dudley Manborough is still living. I mean, he having some challenges.
He's still living now? Oh, I thought he passed because he was behind those students and stuff around.
No, man. Don't put that on him. No, I don't think he passed yet. But yeah, that's...
No, but there is a maritime school on Shirley Street.
Well, I'll tell you what that is on Shirley Street. Because you and I know we used to go in there, right?
Yeah.
But that is actually a part of the Bahamas Maritime Authority. They set up and they are running what you call a Maritime Cadet Corps program. It's not a school.
Okay.
They're dealing with high school children.
Yeah.
They're dealing with high school children. And a lot of the children that they are galvanizing.
People have trained those children to take them in the pilot house there one time for after school for training.
No, they were training them at C.R. Walker School twice a week, right? So, but there are some of the same students that are going to this maritime school as a result. So two of them tie together.
Okay, so in that case, let them seek checks and see who you can do to motivate this, because it's very interesting. Okay.
Thank you, darling. Thank you so much, and you're absolutely right. Yes, that's my good friend, Lady Brenda. She's the lady that does all the massaging. Boy, if you want to feel good, you go let Brenda put them magic hands on you. And you'll be good. She's from Little Creek, Andres. And she operated in the pilot house downstairs there. I forget the name of the place. But while I work at the BMA, I was in the Gold Circle building. That's where she is. And every time I had to pass her to go upstairs. So if you pass Brenda, I would pop in and we'll talk sometime for hours. I duck and wake. And they know, my people know where I used to be with my Brenda, right? But she's saying that we had an office right downstairs there of Gold Circle building because, of course, the Minister of Transport is right in that building. The BMA was right in that building. And I was the technical person in the BMA. So Mr. Dudley Martinborough would have started up the Bahamas Maritime Cadet Corps program. And I would have been side by side with him when we went around to all the schools doing presentations and trying to get students interested in maritime stuff. And that went on for years. It's still going on. I think, there's a numerous Defense Force persons that I know very well that are still a part of it and over the years were part of keeping it going. Because when it first started, I was instrumental in finding some of the initial instructors. Now, remember now, this program was formed to introduce students to maritime engagements, opportunities, to get them to understand this maritime world exists and there's opportunities out there if you want to get into it. And the program started with, I think they had 2 buses picking students up from high school, afterwards taking them to C.R. Walker, and then taking them back to their school, and then the parents would pick them up later on in the day. But it has grown into hundreds instead of tens, and to date, thousands have passed through those doors. But that set up, Lady Brenda, and I'm so happy you called to point out that we had this Marine Cadet Corps program. That setup was basically the spark, the start, to get the students involved. But it was not designed to certify them to work on board a vessel. To certify, they would have to take it a step further. And what that institution eventually did was we endorsed an institution in Canada, PEI, Prince Edward Island, which I actually been to do the endorsement, right? It's this back in 2003, I think it was. We endorsed, I don't remember right now, I will remember before I finish talking, right? The institution in Canada, that hundreds of Bahamians would have gone after they got through with the Cadet Corps program to certify themselves to work on board ships. But part of the problem was after they finished getting their certification, it was difficult for some of them to get on ships. Now we had, again, Mr. Lowell J. Mortimer, who now owns or started out putting up that school on Arawaki. He was like the legal arm for Dockendale Shipping. And then later on Campbell Shipping. And so, because he had influence, we were able to get a lot of those students linked up with Sea Time to go to sea on those ships once they qualified in Canada. And many of them I see today and they tell me, oh, I did get qualified, did go to sea a couple times, but, after a while it started being difficult to get on ships and this and that. Because the link that was missing was the Bahamas Maritime Authority did not engage enough their ship owners to, I want to say convince, but to request in a strong way that we would like you to take on these Bahamians who are certified because they can hardly find ships. And because we have such a large register, and because the BMA has such a good relationship with those ship owners, things could have been worked out. And they wasn't worked out then, and they ain't worked out now. The BMA is so lax on this that the cruise ship step in with LJM because, Lord, I still can't remember the institution in Canada. Somebody call and tell me the institution is, please. I can't remember. I hit in a blank with that. But the LJM, who just graduated a class about 2 weeks ago, or was it last week? Recently, the LJM was tasked with also finding students for their program. Sea time for those students. Get them on a ship so they could, because part of maritime training is actually you have to go on a ship and sail for minimum periods in order to certify to go to the next rank. And if you can't find a ship that will take you, because ships don't just take you on, they usually take you through what they call crewing agencies. And we had a crewing agency in the Bahamas. I don't know if we still run it, called Aquamarine. And that was kind of tied in with Campbell Shipping and Dockendale Shipping. And I don't know how effective and active they are, because I don't know if they still have the amount of ships that used to be under Campbell Shipping. But in any case, they were not really linked to those other big sources that the BMA would have under their registry. So, in my view, the BMA should have reached out to Aquamarine, if that's the name, I think that's the name, and ensure that Aquamarine shake hands with some of their ship owners in getting Bahamians, once they're certified by LJM, to join their ships as deckhands, as oilers and wipers, officer in charge of navigation watch, officer in charge of engineering watch, and then in those areas. Because now we got to look at LJM and make sure that the training is streamlined with those positions on the international fleet of ships, right? Which are a rating forming part of a navigation watch, a rating forming part of an engine watch. And when you get on board, they call them oilers and wipers and all the rest of that stuff, right? And officer in charge of navigation watch or officer in charge of engineering watch. Because from there, the only thing you get is chief mate and master, or second engineer and chief engineer. And I may be getting a little technical to some of you, but those who know maritime and who listen to this maritime show know what I'm talking about, right? So we need LJM, Maritime Academy. We need to be ensured that they are teaching with the STCW convention. That is the convention, that is the standards by which personnel have to be certified in order to engage positions on board the international ships. So to make sure that happens, that institution and every other institution in the world that produces seafarers for maritime, the international fleet, is supposed to be audited by their administration in their country. In our country, the maritime administration is the Bahamas Maritime Authority. They're supposed to be audited quarterly to ensure that what the code require, time-wise and material-wise, is actually being portrayed. Now, I know that we have some retired Defense Force person or even some active Defense Force persons who are our readings actually assisting at LJM. Now, I would think that they're assisting in some of the training, certainly in some of the discipline. But are those persons qualified under the code for the position they teaching? Because it's easy to make it happen, but you can't make it happen unless they sail commercially. You can't tell me you running on the BDF on the Defense Force boat for 12 years. I did 13 years on Defense Force boats, and I didn't know the first thing but solars. I didn't know the first thing but MAPOL, STCW, nothing, because those things do not apply to the Defense Force. So don't come to me telling me, oh, the Defense Force fellas who sail, they know. No, they don't. They don't. 326-825. Call me if you want to say that, because I can tell you why I know they don't. And if that's the case, we need to send them to do the qualification at a school that is certified to do it. That, like in the U.S., the Coast Guard actually scrutinizes and makes sure these things happen. Their exam, they can take Coast Guard exam to get certification, eh? So here, we need the BMA to check into these things. They're the technical arm of the country for dealing with international maritime certifications, all the rest of it. They know what the STCW code is all about. They know what the SOLAS and the MAPOL and the load line, all those conventions. They know all. I can tell you, I work with the BMA. They do know. They have a technical area that's in the London office. Don't let me get started, because they should be in NASA as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, our time is running away from us. Obviously, none of y'all want to call me to say hello. None of y'all want to call me to say, oh yeah, this is what we need to do with this. That's what we need to do with that. But the BME needs to ring out LJM. Since they're putting money into it, since the government is putting money, ring it out and ensure that what the STCW code require is actually being implemented and transposed. They need to grab a hold of the LJM, since they ain't got nothing else to do when it comes to expanding for employment opportunities for Bahamians in the maritime field. Grab a hold of them and make sure they shake hands with some of the ship owners. Make sure they shake hands with Aquamarine or whatever local Bahamian operated crewing agency we could have in this country, to get our people linked to the international ships so they could get international certification and then come back home and work locally with certification. They need to make sure that LJM is putting out training for the mail boats. Captain, commanding officer, under 500 gross tons. Mate, chief engineer, second engineer, under 500 gross tons. Under 3,000 kilowatts. Because these are things that are placed in the STCW convention for us to comply with. We got some people thinking because they get an A-class license they can take a mailboat anywhere. But nonsense, but they ain't no better. Anyway, you can't call me no more. That one over. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Maritime Matters. Our sponsors for the night, Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, 101 Pharmacy, Island Care Pharmacy. My producer for the night, the great Mr. Craig Gibson. We had no callers, but I thank you for listening. Because without you listening, we might as well not have no show. Again, we'll be back next Tuesday at 5:05, bushy tail and ready to go. So, with that, I have to say good night to my Annie. Good night, Annie. And they say, as always, my dear listener, Maritime Matters, tick, 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 out.